looking at a passage from Luke chapter 14. It's the first few verses of the reading that I used yesterday. Luke chapter 14, verses 1 to 6. Shall we read it together, please? One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. There in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not?" But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and sent him away. Then he asked them, "If one of you has a son or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull him out?" And they had nothing to say. I love this guy. He's just amazing. What a guy, Jesus. But I'm a little intrigued about the gate crasher. Who's the gate crasher? Because clearly, Jesus sends the guy away who's been healed, which means that he didn't have an invitation to the dinner. So you're not part of the dinner here. So this is somebody who was so determined to see Jesus, he gate crashed the party. It would have been unheard of for Pharisees to have a sick man in their house because it would have made them unclean. So good on this gate crasher. Absolutely. I want to see Jesus, and you ain't going to stop me. Jesus healed him and sent him on his way. I bet you that was better food than any food he would have had at that table. But it's Jesus who gets my attention because it has to be. Jesus asks two questions, and as I was reflecting on the passages over the last couple of days, I've just been stuck at the place where they had no answer. The first question was, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? And it says, they remained silent. The second question is, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out? And they had nothing to say. Two questions, two unanswerable questions, no answers given. Jesus' mission, as we read it in the Gospels, is clearly trying to give people an opportunity of seeing who he is. So he does extraordinary things, not least of all his teaching. And we see in Luke again and again and again, people were in awe and wonder at the things he had to say. Jesus forgives sins. And that got people's attention because they knew only one can forgive sins. Jesus healed. Jesus drove out demons. Jesus raised the dead. Jesus was drawing attention to himself, even though on occasions he told people not to tell others about it, which would be difficult to do if you'd just been healed from whatever it is you might have been healed from. Jesus did things to get people's attention. As I was preparing this morning, I was reminded of that wonderful occasion when Jesus cast out a demon, and the people said, "Well, you're doing this by the hand of Beelzebul. You're doing this by the hand of the devil himself." And Jesus just makes gentle reference to, if I do this by the finger of God. And we all read that and pass over it. But they all sat up because they know the Torah. And the finger of God is mentioned twice. The first occasion in the Torah that the finger of God is mentioned is when God is rescuing the people from the plagues, by the plagues, rescuing the people from Egypt. And the magicians couldn't do all of the amazing things that Moses was doing. And the magicians had to say to Pharaoh, they are doing these things by the finger of God. And then the Ten Commandments. were written on stone. How? By the finger of God. So Jesus says a throwaway line. If I do these things by the finger of God, what is he saying? He's saying, attention, please. Jesus was drawing attention to himself. But it was the questions that got me. It was the two questions. What is going on here? Jesus asked two questions and they're completely silent in 5 verses. And I was reminded reminded of a scriptural occasion when God asked a few questions. I wonder if anybody knows the longest passage of scripture where God asks question after question after question. I didn't count the questions and I won't give it to you for homework to do. But our sources tell us God asked 77 questions, one after the other. Who to? Job. Job. Job had, just prior to God responding with his questions, Job had got to the end. He was making his final appeal. And he says, well, God should write an answer. Put it in writing. I just think that's so funny. Just imagine if we had a meeting. Why don't you put it in writing? What you're saying to us. Job says, put it in writing. Job had reason to ask the question, yes? Job had reason to ask the question. I'm not denying that. But God does this extraordinary thing and responds to a man who's suffering with 77 questions. And he doesn't mention suffering once. What's God doing? The questions can be summed up in 3 questions. Who created the universe? God asks Job. Who controls the universe? God asks Job. Who can comprehend the universe? God asks Job. Did Job ever answer any of these questions? No. What was Job's response at the end? He bowed his head. He bowed his head. He bowed his head and acknowledged who God was. It's no surprise that the next verses in the Luke chapter 14 reading are all about humility. No surprise at all. When you see how the Lord works. I don't think God was disregarding Job's humanity at all. But I think God was showing in his loving way, reminding Job of his divinity. That I am God, I created you, I'm in control, and I've got this sorted. So Jesus asks 2 questions that are unanswerable. And I didn't see it until I was thinking about it. He was saying again, I'm God. I'm going to ask you questions that you can't answer because I am God. And if you recognize who I am, Jesus is saying, in my words, if you recognize who I am, and another important key, recognize who you are, all will be well. And all manner of things will be well. What Jesus wants us to know, what Jesus wanted those Pharisees to know, what Jesus wanted the man with dropsy to know, is that he is God. And he came to the earth to love, to save, to heal, to restore, to bring about his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And the most wonderful, extraordinary, awesome thing is that he says, Alan, come, follow me. Rosemary, come, follow me. Julie, come. Peter, come, follow me. He invites us to walk with him on that road of bringing about his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Enjoy the journey.